Ms. Vedder?
Here.
Mrs. Edwards?
Here.
Mr. Benson?
Here.
Mrs. Geiger?
Here.
Mr. Sorensen?
Okay. Moving forward, there was no items for discussion at the present time, nor was there any presentations. So, I'm looking for the reports from Kathy, if you would start.
Sure. The bids we did last month were treatment chemicals at the landfill, seasonal produce, chainsaw and small engine parts, steel and aluminum, utility terrain vehicles, and pre-stressed concrete slab units. I have all the summaries if anyone's interested.
Is there any questions regarding those bids?
I just want to see the treatment chemicals when you get a chance. It doesn't have to be now.
Sure.
Want to see how big Fallsburg got hit.
Okay.
Cindy?
No, I just wanted to ask Kathy about the best value.
Yes.
Is that all done now and?
It's all done, actually,
The
just
law
this
was
morning.
passed, right?
Yeah, the law was passed. The piggybacking, the best value, and the RFP change, 10 to 50. The revised manual is on the portal as of this morning, so anyone can see the whole revised purchase manual, and the best value's in there.
Okay, so you
And
can
I'll be-
start utilizing that as a tool if you determine that.
Yes, with the departments. But every quarter I'll be reporting to you if we've used it or not. And that would be then in July.
So that will allow us to know whether or not it was worth the bother in a year, because we'd have a quarterly report to
Yeah,
find out.
you would know, you could follow it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there anything else, Kathy?
No.
Okay, Board of Elections.
Ronnie's on vacation this week, so you've got just me to report. And we're taking advantage of the lull in our office to catch up on the backlog that accumulated during the Bloomingburg debacle. Last week, Rodney and I did meet with representatives of the U.S. Attorney's Office as well as the FBI and the Postal Service with regard to the voter fraud issue in Bloomingburg, which is the subject of an ongoing investigation and a concerted effort to identify everyone that was complicit in this particular scheme. So that's encouraging to all of us, and all of the agencies are working hand in hand and very fruitfully at that. We got our new computers this week, so we're getting used to that system and incorporating of our various software and programs into that with the cooperation and help of MIS. And I don't know if Rodney had mentioned, but we are in the process of purchasing another software issue that will enable us to work in concert with DMV and various other agencies in scanning in rather than manually entering a lot of our information, which will be time saving. And that's of course being purchased with HAVA funds at no cost to the county. I don't know again if Rodney mentioned, but we were relieved, of course, that we do not have a June primary. Chris Gibson, who is the only federal officer that's up for re-election this year, is not being challenged either by his party, and his opponent is not being challenged within the Democratic Party. So that will net a considerable savings, hopefully, for our office, which was hit quite hard financially with the Bloomingburg issue. Our total cost for mailings alone in Bloomingburg were over $3,500, so we took a big hit there. And Rodney and I also met last week with the redistricting committee, and we're very confident in the company that we're working with. We're very close to a resolution on that, and then we'll be working in conjunction with the planning department to redraw the lines and be set to go for the November election.
Now, when you're putting together this software with the motor vehicle, it'll give us a better idea of who's actually residents of the county?
It just, I mean, if someone, right now, if someone registers their vehicle with Sullivan, with the DMV, they can just also do their voter registration at the same time. So we, instead of getting paper copies of all of that, we would get electronic transmissions, which can be uploaded, checked by a bipartisan team in the Board of Elections, and it'll also enable us to transfer all of our paper documents into a scanned online system that we're assured is secure, but it certainly would be a time and space saver for us. And most other counties in the state have already been using this program successfully for a number of years.
Thank you. Cora?
And a question I had asked, because we had a Village of Liberty trustees election.
We did?
I know, because it went smoothly, knock on wood, it didn't get the notoriety that the, Mamakating and the other, election got, but, you know, and I'd ask, well, why, isn't it easier for you guys just to have your election in November? I mean, why is it in March in the middle of, you know,
All
there's no other?
village elections are always held in either March. There are a couple of villages that hold them in June. The village of Woodridge did transfer
To November.
theirs to November.
So that means it's doable.
It's doable, it's, you know,
It's a lot at once though,
it's,
wouldn't it be?
I mean, right now, the way it works right now for us
Today.
is that all of the costs that accrue to a village election, we can charge back to the villages. If they add it to the November ballot, then we couldn't do that. Plus, it
It would
creates a
fall
longer
into the
ballot.
county.
It
It
would, yeah,
would
with the
fall into
county.
the county share.
It would be.
So from your perspective, keep it in March and keep the costs, out of the county coffers.
That would be preferable to us.
Okay.
yes.
That's what I'm asking. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, moving forward, cooperative extension.
Come ladies. We'll spread out since the chairs are.
You wanna sit?
Yep, I'll sit here, and then one can sit there. We're using 2 minutes of our time trying to figure out where to sit.
You must have had military training. You spread out so one grenade
That's
doesn't get you all.
right. That's right. So thank you again. I'm Pat Claiborne, to those of you whom I've not met, Interim Director for Cooperative Extension in Sullivan. Melinda, you know, and Maria Grimaldi is with me today because we wanted to let you know the status of the e-kitchen, and she's been the person who has hit the pavement running with that particular project and the Recipes for Success program. And so I'm gonna give you these papers, but please let me know if you prefer having this electronically. I just sometimes feel that we give you guys a lot of paper, and but staff feel that's the way you can have a better understanding of what they're doing. So I'll start with the Recipes for Success program and ask Maria to let you know where we are with that. She came in, we had a staff meeting this morning, and she came in and I said, I understand your last session was last night. I should share with the committee the outcome of that series. And I said, so give me your evaluations. And then I thought, well, why don't you come, particularly after she came in and gave me this, and it's not alcohol. It's barbecue sauce that one of the entrepreneurs shared, I guess, last night. And then she said, well, and here's the package for the pasta. And I said, you come and you tell them what the outcome is for the Recipes for Success.
Okay.
Can I interrupt you for just a second?
Sure.
This is what you mail out, isn't it? It's the same magazine that comes out?
Well, that's the newsletter you get that's mailed out. I think we prepare this just for this meeting.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but
Well, I
most
see a lot
it,
of the same stuff.
Yes,
Okay.
you will.
Okay. I would first like to thank Cora and Kitty for the idea to develop this program for potential food entrepreneurs that's kind of centered around the kitchen that we're building and will be ready by the end of May. We had a terrific program. I passed around what the general curriculum was. I worked with Heinrich Strauss from the Liberty Community Development Corporation, and we put together different presenters. They included Paula Barber from the Department of Ag and Markets. She's retired now, but she went over all the regs that people have to go through if they're producing evaluated product to be resold. We had Anna Malucky and Brian Flynn at the Jeff Bank, who came to talk about financing and loans and startup money and all that sort of thing, as well as Tim McCausland from the Orange County Regional Trust, who spoke about different legal structures that businesses could take, that sort of stuff, which people found interesting. But last night was really the culmination of the program. And this is where we thought people would be ready to present a business plan, which we had stressed as being so important. Instead, we got these two fantastically successful entrepreneurs who really spoke about how they built their product through their passion for doing it, both success stories. One is Bob Eckert from Northern Farmhouse Pasta in Roscoe, New York. And has done it very quickly. He's connecting to the local food movement and in New York State produced foods. He's going to be opening his own store where he's connecting to the different food initiatives in Roscoe and the local food businesses, including farmers and everything else. So we had different pastas for people to taste last night too. And then Heinrich got Ed McCarthy, who developed a whole line of barbecue sauces. It's called Hoboken Eddies. And basically they broke the mold. They do their business plans in their sleep. They wake up and it's a fluid plan, and they had us in stitches. But I would say it was a very successful program. We had an evaluation of it and everybody got 5 stars.
And
So thank you for your
Yeah.
support on this.
Yeah.
Well, it also happened so quickly. What I'd like to suggest for the next time too, because
Yes.
I'm so sorry that I missed last night, is if we can showcase some of the local products, like in a little glass cabinet or something, like at the Foxwoods Catskills show, you know, they have a storefront next to ShopRite,
Okay.
you know, and then this way people would see it, because there's this big Taste of New York movement,
Would this be something we do with the Visitors Bureau?
if they wanted to.
It sounds more like
Yeah,
that
and-
kind of a collaboration.
And I'm sure that can happen now that this series is completed and we're moving towards opening the kitchen and starting the operation, we hope. I think the soft date for the ribbon cutting is
In July.
in July.
But we'll be-
I look
we'll
at
be
the staff, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
But it's just that seeing is believing kind of thing.
absolutely. I mean,
And
I
if
see-
people are interested, they would contact you. So if somebody inquires of us that they want
Dan's
to
looking at it.
produce.
Is
Yes,
it local?
yes.
The interesting thing is we will be the only official
Barbecue sauce.
shared use kitchen in the Catskills.
No, you can't drink it.
The closest other one is in
Thanks,
Poughkeepsie.
Jack.
Now, we're a micro enterprise, so we expect that we're gonna get lots of inquiries if people are willing to drive to use the kitchen. And we can provide them with the technical assistance from Cornell University, which not just leasing any kitchen, you know, people think, well, I can just go lease any kitchen. But we have all that technical information at our fingertips from the Food Venture Center in Ithaca, New York, so.
And I know with the
It's usually
advisory board, we're talking about the marketing piece.
Mhm.
You know, so once the product is completed,
Yeah, that, again, we're educators,
Mhm.
but we can connect to people like the New York State Food Processors Association, which I'm a member of, and they help. They can come down and help with the marketing. We can do a little bit with marketing like we did last night, where we bring in people who have successfully marketed and let them tell their story.
right?
And that's even better than us
Exactly.
telling you how to do it.
But
I
putting
think-
it, as Cora had said, putting it in the place there in Liberty, I think would be a great stepping off
Absolutely.
place.
And we'll definitely add these suggestions to our list. Staff did meet this morning to discuss the operational plan and moving forward, and under which marketing and PR was a major component. So if you have some other suggestions, definitely send them to us.
We're grateful that you took the idea and turned it around and made it something so wonderful. I've only heard really good things about it from everybody who's participated.
Well, I emailed Greg Sanders, whom you all know, this was his vision. And so to let him know it's moving forward, and definitely we'll keep his name out there so people know it was Greg's vision. Okay?
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything to add, Melinda?
No, not for that.
Okay. With the handout, about 2 minutes, because I wouldn't be able to go back to the office if I didn't reference that you received this these pieces. And as you can see, we were quite busy. Congressman Gibson, we've had an opportunity to be in his presence twice over the past month. First at the press conference, and then he called and wanted to come and visit the greenhouse. Thank you for giving my sauce back. And so you can see he was present. And then Professor Watkins, who's the director of Extension now, stopped by. So we are the projects that this cooperative extension is involved with. It's out there. I think at Cornell, Dr. Watkins has mentioned it, and referenced.
Yeah, we have leading projects in the state with
Yeah.
extension.
So thanks to you all, we're able to do that. And then I'm not gonna read all of this, but you can see, you can go through it. The caregivers program, Bonnie is doing an excellent job, and I'd ask you to take a look at the upcoming workshops because she's offering one for agencies who are in the business of providing care for senior adults. And I understand in the county now, in terms of long-term health care, there's a process. And this is why she has set up this program May 15th to work with agencies so that they understand. I know we need to start numbering these, so that they can understand the process for providing that service. That's under the Family and Consumer Science Caregivers Resource piece. Okay.
Under the consumers, and I want you to know what a great asset you have in Sean Welsh.
Thank you.
He addressed,
We'll take that back.
he addressed some consumer gouging concerns in my district, and I didn't hear back from any of my constituents, so I'm assuming he did a great job on it. Actually, I know he did, because I called him to thank him.
I'm making note.
But I want that to be known publicly, that you have a great asset in Sean Welsh.
Excellent. We will definitely let Sean know. Okay. Any questions with what you have in front of you?
I was just wondering if, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If we could just have a little update about the world studies and the collaboration with Dr. Hill.
Oh, yeah, well,
Yeah, so.
the
well,
leader is over in the corner,
So,
so.
one of the things that I think is great about the Recipe to Market and what Greg and I had talked about was trying to have sort of several phases for entrepreneurs and feeding that into Startup New York. And so, because anyone who's producing like barbecue sauce or pasta, according to the legislation, they are eligible for Startup New York, which means that, and a lot of agriculture is not, by the way. If you're wholesaling lettuce, you're not eligible. But if you're taking that lettuce and turning it into a nice salad and selling it to Trader Joe's, you are eligible for Startup New York, right? Just like these products are perfect Startup New York products. So I think part of what SUNY Sullivan hopes comes out is that you've got the recipe to kitchen and the technical expertise at Cornell, that if the SUNY 2020 grant is funded, and we heard last week they haven't even started reading the applicants yet, so we'll just keep our fingers crossed and wait. I guess no news is good news. But that then we have a facility that expands, goes from the kitchen setting to a food processing beverage manufacturing setting.
Right.
And Greg kindly offered to have part-time Cornell staff housed at the college to assist with the technical expertise. This is like 2 years out, so don't worry about budget right now, right? Take a deep breath. It's okay, and so, but the idea is that we really do try to grow entrepreneurs in Sullivan County, and the SUNY 2020 round of grants is heavily emphasizing Startup New York. So my suggestion would be, and maybe this came up, but we probably should build in, now that the college recently, like last week, had our Startup New York plan approved, we probably should layer some of that information into the Recipe to Market program so that some of your students who really are ready to go understand that if they locate on the college campus, if they really expand their pasta production, the retail shop could still be in Roscoe because there's no tax benefit there. But the actual manufacturing facility, if it's located on SUNY Sullivan, which is the easiest way to do it, no property taxes, no income taxes for 10 years. The IDA will also leverage an additional benefit typically. I mean, it's just a great deal. And the college decided to focus on 3 areas. Food and beverage manufacturing is one. Green technologies, particularly in the manufacturing of renewable energies like solar batteries, solar power, things like that is 2. And the 3rd is software development. So if you manufacture software nationally or worldwide, that counts. But so you're manufacturing it, you're not providing a service. So the legislation is a little bit complicated, but the faculty have bought off on those 3 areas, and that's really key. The faculty are really excited about agriculture and food and beverage manufacturing, which is a wonderful tie into Cornell.
So, SUNY would be doing its part in recruiting, global companies, say, to come in and manufacture, but there's also
Right.
a piece where if, like in
If
the
it's a startup.
collaboration, that you
Yeah.
identified an entrepreneur
Right.
that was interested in, and then maybe the county and the college
Right,
try to get grant funding and fund that business.
Correct.
absolutely.
See, our kitchen is.
So is that an opportunity for like the CFA thing too? CFA funding
Could be,
to?
especially if they're startups.
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
and
ours
this
is
is,
a startup,
Yeah,
ours
it's
is
a
a
startup.
startup kitchen, it's a teaching kitchen.
Right.
Yours would be a production,
Correct, it's more
production and
manufacturing.
business, a
Right,
whole
right.
business curriculum that would tie into it besides.
Correct.
Which is great, and that's what they did up at, Morrisville
That's,
and
and
Nelson
that's the
Farms.
model that we look at.
And that's the
Yeah.
model to look at, so that
Right.
would be great if we
Yeah.
could do it here, cause we're
Yeah.
a better positioned actually.
Right.
So those that would use your kitchen, that would be producing something like this, they would either market on their own, or maybe the county would have a marketing piece to the metropolitan area, or if they
Absolutely.
desired to take it big and open
Right.
a processing
Correct.
facility.
Yeah.
So that's what you would be looking for, that.
Right, and so when, in the 2020 proposal, we've got a facility that has some labs. So in other words, I develop my recipe in the Cornell kitchen, but then I say, okay, I've made this for 100 people, how do I make it for 20,000 people, right? That's a different process entirely, and so the college would, in the grant, we built in a fermentation lab, we built in a kind of a packaging line in the budget. But the idea is that they go from Cornell recipe to kitchen, then they figure out how to get it to a big commercial market, and then they set up their shop right on campus and get the Startup New York benefits. So it's like a circle that gets completed.
Who builds
Cool.
the place?
What we're being advised by attorneys is that the businesses need to set up the shop. The counties are definitely willing to try to get for community colleges, county-sponsored land. Our goal is to try to get it shovel-ready, but manufacturers are gonna have relatively customized and unique buildings, so they're gonna have to be ready to fund that piece of it, or get financing for that piece of it, or get a grant. But the college, it wouldn't be wise for us to do it, because it's probably going to be fairly customized. But, does that make sense?
And if
So-
they go out of business, we end up owning it. And what do we do with it?
Yeah, and I do think the college should have some,
Yeah.
and the county would approve of those plans, that, we would have to kind of have an exit plan in the case that a company did leave, but.
That's a good point.
Not that I'm trying to be pessimistic.
Right, no, it's a great
But
point.
it's one of the
And-
reasons why the Startup New York swath of land isn't in the light bulb, it's a little removed, because what you don't want is vacant buildings sitting right by where the students are taking classes, if in the worst case scenario, that's what happens.
But Startup New York
So-
encompasses other parcels that aren't at the college, right?
Well, it's on county-sponsored college land, so, but it's far enough removed from where the main instructional areas are, that it wouldn't be an eyesore, let me put it that way. If the buildings were nice steel buildings, for example, I think that would be okay, so.
Okay, and just to wrap up, because I was totally impressed with, we do collaborate a great deal with BOCES. And I looked out the window yesterday, and the students were like busy bees clearing off the space for the high tunnel. And then they're building planters out front of the building. And so they're doing a fantastic job, and I just had to let you know that the BOCES students via the Natural Resource
Natural
Program,
Resource and the tech program.
right, are quite involved with this, so.
And the kitchen.
And the kitchen, that's right, and the kitchen, they did the ceiling and, oh, okay.
And one other thing I wanted to say is 100th anniversary,
Yes,
congratulations. And,
and I guess I don't guess, I'm hoping, at the proclamation on the 15th, thank you very much,
Yes.
Joan wanted me to make sure I let you know, thank you, that we hope the Democrat section will be ready to present to you. It's an excellent piece they've done on the 100th anniversary for Cooperative Extension. Melinda, did I leave out something about that piece?
No, I think that's.
Okay, so yes, we are, thanks to you, again, I can't say it enough, we're able to be in existence to continue to say we have a cooperative extension in Sullivan County that's still working independently and have not had to join with another county as some associations have had to do.
And I just want to add just a quick thing. We were talking about the last meeting of the dairy processing and the grant that going up to Cornell University and visiting their plant was incredibly helpful, and meeting with the state specialists. They're kind of there to help us with that and to get suggestions. So we.
Quite a plant in Stocking Hall, isn't it?
What
Yeah,
was that?
Stocking Hall, yeah.
Yeah, it's the ice cream is so
Yeah,
good.
did you?
Oh, so they're fully operational, cause we went up there, they
Oh,
hadn't
yeah.
opened yet.
Stocking
Yeah.
Hall, that
Fully
plant has been
operational.
in running since the 19.
Yeah.
Well, they did
Forties.
upgrade. They have
They just
the
upgraded
yogurt
periodically.
Yeah.
facility now.
1947.
The yogurt
1947.
facility,
Yeah.
So
For a long
That-
time too.
that was really, really helpful with
It's a
looking
very
at
good
what we're
plan.
trying to do.
I remember a lot of things people don't remember, even though I wasn't there.
Cora?
I apologize.
I read
that
books.
was-
I don't know what's wrong with me.
Cora?
We're reminiscing, okay.
The question that I asked you before when the meeting started, we had asked, and I know that Greg had a lot on his plate toward the end there, with regards to assessed value, since the property was being transferred over.
The building,
The building,
Mhm.
and, we've come up with this thing in other properties where if at any point in the future, there's parcels that are, segmented off, or, BOCES wants to buy the trail in the back or anything like that, that we have an understanding of the assessed value at the time that it was transferred. Has there been any movement on that from your end?
I did bring your question to the board president, and it was shared with the board, and the response I got was at the time you were requesting it, the association didn't have it in their hands as far as the lease, etc., so they hadn't spent a lot of time. I will definitely take this back to the board and let them know the question was asked,
Yeah,
okay?
what the appraisal would be. and-
Is it just the building?
Well, no, we don't know what the whole
Oh.
footprint is.
Footprint goes, most of it is way in the back. There's a little piece of it across the street. on
Oh,
that back.
okay, wow, okay.
Well, that's why it's helpful.
All right, okay.
What do we
Do
give
do
away
noted.
here for
Well, I
another-
think you may have already given it away, but okay.
There is
I mean, not giving it away in a nice way, however. I'm sorry.
There is a
We asked
deed,
that
there is a
question.
deed
So much.
description of it someplace.
Okay.
We probably have one. And it was always intended to be for,
Cooperative
Cooperative.
extension,
Yeah.
okay, all right. But I will take it back. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay.
Thanks, Maria.
Okay,
Get out while you can.
I don't see anybody here from the county clerk's office. No.
No,
So,
college.
Dr. Hildersum, you're up. And one of my elements of the presentation today was Startup New York, so now I don't have to do that
Oh,
again, right?
good.
Right?
We're,
No, I
we're a
think-
team.
Yeah, I think so, don't you think?
Madam President,
Save everybody's time.
how far, in your plan, is there any proposal to go off campus, because they can
Um,
go up to a limited distance
that's-
off campus?
That is a very good question. In our proposal, there's a section called affiliation agreements. And what I state in that section is, the college is open to an affiliate agreement if there are a significant number of jobs created and good program alignment. One of the things that's happened with Startup New York that several presidents at other community colleges are also concerned about is phone calls from individuals who are they already have businesses, and they basically want to take advantage of the tax situation without really expanding or doing anything different than what they currently do. And they point to, well, the legislation says I can be, a mile out, or, and it's like, well, it does say that, but let's talk. How many new jobs will you create? Is it significant? Does it align with the programs? And the other thing too, that when I talked to some of the ESD staff who've been really good to work with on it, they said, we put that in there, but honestly, it's better and simpler if it's on your campus. That in terms of ease, that really is the best model. That it's a new company, preferably from out of state or out of country, and it's on your campus. But they also didn't want to get so rigid that if a really legitimate company who is near campus and had a significant expansion, that they didn't want to rule that out either. But So it's mentioned so that I don't have to go back and amend it, but it's not the focus of our plan. We have 400 county acres, right? So we're relatively unique in this regard. There's only a few other community colleges that have that kind of space. So there's really no reason for us to worry about an affiliation agreement. Anyway,
So the potential to develop the 400 acres.
is there, it's in the plan. And is that what you're asking? Or-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And so the other thing about Startup New York is that it does imply a lot of faculty support and a strong program alignment. So we worked with several faculty, and we also made sure that our faculty council, which is all the faculty, understand where the plan lives for the next 20, well, now we're down to, I think, 20 days in the 30-day review period. The plan has been officially approved, however, so it's really sort of peculiar. It's approved while it's being reviewed, but it has been approved, so we are a Startup New York zone. I decided not to do a press release until after the 30 days is up, and it's probably already been a couple of weeks. I've lost track of when we got, of when that occurred. I think what the SUNY Sullivan faculty support is very much in alignment with the college's strategic plan and the 2020 proposal. So it is food and beverage manufacturing, green technologies, and software development. So,
And Cindy, you can actually be even renting one room in the college.
well,
But
a
it's
later version of the legislation, of the
I know what
regs
you're-
have said, and this one I thought kind of shocked me, that you're not allowed to use space that's been vacated for the purpose of Startup New York.
That's right, but if it's
So-
already been today.
But here's an example. So, we recently, this week, moved up our Community Learning Foundation staff upstairs in a much nicer space for the community to see, which means that their offices are vacant. However, there are a number of faculty who
Who
want
want
to
to.
move in those offices, and by statute, they get priority. Right? So if we've got anybody doubled up or tripled up, and we do in some cases, they can say, you can't use that for Startup New York, we need those offices, and I believe they would be protected by the regs. So, there you go, and that's okay, because honestly, we don't have a lot of office space for significant jobs. I think it's really important that if we're gonna give significant tax benefits such as this, they need to be significant jobs. So,
Now, when I reviewed your 5-year strategic plan, and there was a
Yes.
question in there about ag businesses, was that ever clarified for you?
not sure I'm.
Like the food hub kind of initiatives and whether it would,
Oh, yes, okay, very good. It actually is fairly clear, and that is that the word used in the regs is transformative. So if you transform an ag product and add value to it, then it will qualify for Startup New York. So,
So
but
not a raw
wholesalers
product.
wouldn't,
right?
right? But if I
Okay.
took, but if I made cheese, that would qualify, if I manufactured cheese, or, if I did maybe something different with beef products and turned it
A
into
smoking business or
right,
something, or
exactly. So-
sausage or,
yes,
okay.
yeah. And we did build that into the plan, and it was approved, and there were no
So
concerns
a
about
distribution
that.
system, does that fit in, or does it
So,
have to be something?
Food hub
that-
question, I think it would be marvelous to have the food hub on our campus, and I plan on having a very upfront discussion with Andrea and, Jennifer about the possibility, and Scott actually put the bug in my ear too, so thank you, because I do think it's a really good idea for everyone. I don't think that would qualify as Startup New York, because it would be considered more of a service, and services like that really are exempt. However, I also think if we had some food and beverage manufacturers, that's just another enticement to be able to, right now, we're in conversation with a company in China that develops healthy beverages, and they use things like ginger and, things like that in these beverages. How wonderful would it be for them to be able to literally create the product and stick it on a truck and it's gone, and that truck is right there?
So a
To me,
piece-
that's a huge enticement.
So like a piece of an expanded, like distribution.
Right.
Which would include like bringing the product there, washing, packing, and maybe,
Washing and packing may
transforming.
not quite make it.
Right, but it
You've
may-
gotta
yes,
transform it. You've
transform
gotta
it.
do something to process it.
Yeah.
And it's.
so a component of it.
And there's
Correct.
one other issue that you have to worry about there, Cindy.
And there's packaging and labeling too. by the
Yes.
way. Yeah.
And it can't be competitive with something
Yeah.
immediately nearby, so
Yeah, so-
that becomes a real problem.
That could be, because it could, so for example, if a product exactly like Formaggio cheese came in,
Yeah.
they could probably say, oh, we don't want to permit that.
Who would
So-
say that? Startup.
Formaggio cheese.
Oh,
would-
Formaggio.
Yeah, so if there is
within the
a
community.
challenge,
Oh, a
about that,
community
then that
challenge
will-
within the
correct.
initial stage of.
correct,
You just have to be alert to it.
right.
Okay.
And
There are
some,
lots of things you can do, but you have to be
Right.
alert to it.
yeah, good. But we are a startup New York zone now, so that's good.
That's
One less
great.
thing, one less thing to worry about. Okay, so,
People forget the income tax part of it.
I know, see, that's
Employees,
huge.
That's the biggest part,
Right.
really.
right, yeah. Because it also means that employers, in my opinion, should theoretically be able to pay more in actual wages, knowing that,
You're not paying taxes.
right.
I'm
Now,
with
could you
that.
just explain again that period of time, what was it, the 60 days? Was that, what was?
So, I don't even know the reasoning behind this, because it doesn't make any sense to me,
To
but.
limit it, you mean?
The process is that we submitted our official plan to the state, and at that time, we were also asked to submit evidence that we had put the plan out there to a variety of stakeholders, including the county legislators, supervisors, all kinds of individuals, and then we threw some extras in, but they had sort of this expectation of who that should go out to. And then that starts the 30-day clock, right? So one would think that, okay, well then after the 30 days is up, people have had an opportunity to review, to give feedback, whatever, then you'll get approved. But what happens is, we got approved within a week of that, and that's what they've been doing. So, which was great, I mean, we've been approved, but I guess that means that the review process, people can still give feedback and should give feedback. I'm just considering it a living plan. Now, I did send out a couple of drafts prior to the 30-day review feedback with the hope of getting any, concerns before that review period. I don't think we've heard anything yet. I mean, we're just not getting concerns, which is great, so.
Okay.
Is that, it's not logical to me, but
It just seems like there wasn't enough time to get the word out and to move
Right.
through that 30 days.
well, the 30 days is still occurring. But the clock starts when you submit the plan to the state with evidence that you've sent it out to everyone.
I see.
But then they approved it within a week. I would have assumed that they wouldn't approve it until after the 30 days.
The words state and logic don't belong in the same.
Well, you know what, and honestly, it's probably political. It's probably a way to say, we have X amount of plans approved at this point in time. So they're now
They
approving
have
them
it all
very
on the TV, so.
quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Well,
ads, I
the
guess, on
TV
The
TV
guy from
that
Tennessee,
My
right, the
son
ad with the
saw
guy
one.
from Tennessee,
Right.
Yeah.
Moving
so-
right along, folks.
So, yeah, so I've got
Sorry.
two other things to
Well, you
discuss
should
the
be.
day. The first one is, I wanted to give you an update on our budget process. One of the things that occurred, which all over the state, community colleges are extremely disappointed in the state increase in FTE. The community college presidents in the SUNY system requested $250 increase from the state of New York, knowing that if we're lucky, we'll get 150, right? Unfortunately, we ended up with 75. That is a huge disappointment. And it's huge because costs have gone up around energy costs, healthcare benefits, retirement benefits, far more than that $75 amount that we got. So it was extremely disappointing. For SUNY Sullivan, what that meant is, we had a balanced budget for next year until we didn't get the 150. And so, in order to come up with that extra 100,000 in a way that we felt responsible, we are delaying the hiring of 2 vacated positions. It's not a retrenchment, because these are individuals who are leaving on their own accord, but it also means that now we're up to, we've lost a total of 9 positions, and now it hurts. I mean, now we feel it in our workloads and our capacity to get stuff done. But that said, I'm happy to report that as of this morning, we have figured out a way to present a balanced budget to the board for next year. So the vacancies were a good thing, because we had overturned every stone. We went through the budget line by line for at least 20 hours to try to figure out how to cut certain things that we could live without, and you're aware of this process because you've probably been through it yourselves, right? And also fund some new initiatives. And we call the new initiatives SPOT, Strategic Planning Operational Tactics, I think, so SPOT forms. And faculty and staff came up with some wonderful SPOT forms. And we approved several of those, put them into the budget, but in order to fund those, it meant that we had to cut some other things that we could live without. And so I'm happy to report that we went through that process, and I'm so glad that I think we have a decent budget to present before the board. The reason I share that with you is I don't think I can, I don't know how we're gonna do it for the following year. And so I wanted to put the bug in your ear now, because I am going to be asking the county to increase their county sponsorship contribution next year, right? And even right now it's a 4 million, it's been 4 million for at least 6 years, maybe more. I'd like to be able to come back next year and say, we've increased enrollment, so obviously, right, we need more money to help us operate. However, I think the reality is the cost per student continues to go up. And if the state's not gonna kick in extra money, we don't feel good about raising tuition. We're already one of the highest community colleges in the state for tuition. In fact, I think there's only one other that's higher than us. So we really are to a point where I think we're making college education not affordable for families, especially families who can't get Pell Grants, right? They make too much money, so they're stuck with loans. So we don't, and we didn't have a tuition increase for next year. We increased fees, however. So students will pay $90 more in fees next year across the board, and then we've got some very strategic program fees that we're still working on and fine-tuning. But we're definitely to the point that we just can't sustain it. And what's really killing us is health benefit increases, retirement costs as people get older, our percentage goes up, and our electricity bills were terrible. So we're really counting on HelioSage to get done, because they tripled this year. I don't know if you're feeling it, but it's been a really bad year for our, is it NICEAD?
Yes,
NICEAD
everybody
bills.
who's a NICEAD
Yeah.
customer's feeling it.
Yeah, so, and then we have, our boilers are run by propane, that got up to $6.99 a gallon, so that's been killing us. So these are costs that, they go up regardless of your enrollment, and unless we just start leveling, increasing tuition, or the state ponies up, or the county increases their sponsor contribution, it's gonna be tough. That said, I wanna end on a couple of positive notes. Well, no, I won't end yet. I'll give you some information, that's not negative, but and then I'll end on a positive note. So, Josh had asked for kind of an outline of our 5-year capital plan. What I'm giving you is a 10-year capital plan. SUNY asked for 10 years. I know, but only a year is approved at a time. And so I'm giving you 2 documents. One is the 10-year capital plan, so you can kind of see. And the small document is what's really approved for this year and next year with the SUNY system. So these are the buckets of match money that SUNY has said, if you provide a private county or federal match, can't be state, has to be private county or federal match for this thing on the project cost side, then here's the maximum project cost, then here's the maximum match that we will give to you. And Josh had asked for it, and I thought it would be good to share with the entire group. So, any questions about that?
So that's your match to get the cost.
Right, so for example, if we, and some of these, when we put in for project costs, we inflated it as much as we could, right? So for example, I think upgrades to technology equipment, let's see, or computer upgrades, 1.3 million. I mean, if we actually had a donor that said, we're gonna give you 1.3 million, then SUNY would give us 658. That would be a lot. That would be a lot of computer upgrades for us, but we put it in there because the higher dollar amount that we give to SUNY, if they agree to it, then they're kind of agreeing, they're encumbering those monies for us.
I just wanted to understand, the column that says project cost, that's the total cost of the project. The SUNY matches the maximum that SUNY will put in.
Correct.
Do I assume then that the difference between the two, the difference between column 1 and column 2, is what you have to raise from other sources?
No, not.
That's, I just wanted to make sure we
It's
all
basically
understood it
half.
correctly.
So the project cost is what we would raise from, well, let me see, I'm not sure I'm following the question, Sam.
Well, if you raised $1.3 million from the lovely donor and the SUNY gave you 658, then the total of those two leads to a project cost that's over $2 million.
No, not quite.
Okay,
So here's what happens.
That's why I just wanted
That's a
to
very
make
good
sure
question.
we all understood.
Yeah,
that.
and by the way, the Healthy World Studies and Tech Transfer Institute, that's a new facility and that's done differently. So you
Okay.
almost have to ignore what I'm about to say for that line. And so what happens is, we have to spend the money and then we put in for a reimbursement and then SUNY sends us a check. And so you almost create this domino effect. It's really
Okay.
interesting because then we can take that money and do stuff with it. And it might not even be necessarily, it could lead to a like-kind project. So let me see.
If you spend $1.3 million on computer upgrades, SUNY then gives you $658,000. You could use that $658,000 on one of these other items and
Yes.
collect a match on that? Is that?
Of a like project. So
Okay.
here's a real life example. Let's take the solar field. We've got $1 million on there.
Right.
And at the time, we didn't know exactly how much the HelioSage NYSERDA grant was. We did know that we were hearing that SUNY system would let us count their grant toward a match. So since we found out that the grant they got from NYSERDA is over I think it was like 1.7 million, so it's more than what we need. So when that project is done, our plan is that we say, okay, the project is done, it was partially funded by a NYSERDA grant through HelioSage, with SUNY system has said you can count. We hit the max of $1 million, they would send us a check for $500,000, which we were planning to do some of our roof repair. We could do startup New York infrastructure because it's.
Well, you wouldn't get a match on that. You couldn't get a second
Well,
match.
as long as it relates to, and here's what I was told by SUNY, because I asked this the very same question, is it has to be a like project, but we define that very, very broadly.
Okay.
So if it's infrastructure, well, so is Startup New York, that's also infrastructure. If it's energy conservation, when you do a new roof, that's also energy conservation. Does that make sense? Yeah, they do try to be flexible, they really do, so.
Thank you, I'm
It's
sorry.
almost, no, it is, it's almost more of a domino effect
It
than a
is.
real straight back and forth.
Circular.
So let's back up to the site work solar field. That's you putting up a solar field yourself, and wasn't there something somewhere about renting or leasing from somebody else?
So we're actually not, we don't have one penny out of pocket for the HelioSage project. They're doing all the work, but what's nice about that particular line item is the SUNY system has said, probably because they know how desperate we are, that they will let us count HelioSage's federal grant toward a match so that we can get some really critical maintenance projects done on our campus. Does that?
That's incredible.
Kitty, shortly
Yeah.
your board is going to approve the lease. Three-party lease, the county, the college, and HelioSage for the field on which the
Right.
solar array is gonna be placed.
And that should decrease your energy costs then.
Hopefully, and we actually built that into our budget, and we still were $200,000 short until we figured out some solutions this morning. Because we figured out that we're hoping that Helio Sage saves us at least $75,000 a year right out of the gate. Because we're still paying for energy, we're just hopefully not paying as much. What's killing us energy-wise right now is this current year, our electricity bills increased and our propane. Unfortunately, the solar field isn't gonna help us with our propane problem, unless we buy new boilers, which are extremely expensive. But you can buy solar-powered boilers. In fact, they have one at BOCES as a demonstration boiler. They're just very expensive, really expensive. So the cost of that hasn't come down yet.
And your student population, since you're still on your monthly report, you are looking at bringing in students from the east?
So our international program coordinator's joined us. He's really emphasizing China, which is really good. There's lots of interesting things happening in this county related to China. So I think it's going to be a very, very good match. The other thing is that Charlie, his name is Charlie Gao, and he has a background in renewable energies. And it's one of the things that he's recognized in SUNY Sullivan. And one of the reasons why he was considered applying for this particular job. He has an 80-year visa, so he is Chinese. He is not Chinese American, but he has a very, very long extended stay. So we're very, very excited about some of the possibilities. And I'm actually trying to incorporate his knowledge and his expertise and his Chinese knowledge and trust with some Chinese officials, including the Institute of Ministry of Education there, in Startup New York. So we've got a Startup New York meeting planned, and he's invited because he's got some contacts that we're hoping he can help Mark Baez and I in terms of Startup New York. So,
Excellent.
But
yeah.
the students themselves, hopefully you'll have more
Correct, that's his job.
for the fall.
That's the job. I mean, enrollment is a huge piece because tuition dollars really help. They really do.
And the housing piece is there, cause you have the dorms.
Yeah, the housing piece is there. I mean, we are working on, the college is hoping to purchase ECO from, the private developer who built ECO, and that would become the international student housing location, that we would really emphasize that and make it very, very nice for those students. Because you've gotta help them feel welcome, you have to socialize them and have them stay. It's really important. So, I think I got to everything.
So is your report
I think it's
Positive note.
done.
done?
I think I'm
Positive note.
done.
Okay,
I think that was the positive note.
That's fine.
thank you. I think it's time for resolutions.
I make a motion to move 1 through 7 as a block.
Moved by Jean,
Is
seconded
it
by.
seconded by?
I don't know.
Seconded by
I would second it.
Kitty.
That's fine. You're allowed to do that.
Okay, is there any discussion on these resolutions? Is there any discussion on these resolutions? They've been moved as a block?
There was a question on the bonding, but Ed had cleared that up.
That was answered in
In my
DPW,
mind.
I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there's no other discussion, I would call the question. All in favor?
Or is
Cindy,
it Cindy?
Cindy, you voting on
I'm
this?
just going through the pot washer and the lawn mowing services.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay,
Or
so,
is it?
Just re-reviewing, I couldn't remember what was what.
all right, so I believe that we've concluded this, so it's time for public comment. Is there any public comment? Ken?
Well, I'm sorry she left, but she mentioned some very high price for propane they were paying, and I didn't see that kind of price at Tractor Supply. I found it much lower to buy it there as an individual, and I really question why they were getting socked so hard on propane. Well, 3 other things. They're really not addressing housing. We used to have a lot of people in town rent to the students, And then it got to the point where they were not getting paid, and it goes back to the financial aid department and who really was responsible for paying, and or who really owned the money, had possession of the money, and as a result,
Apologize.
and as a result, we lost a lot of student housing in town. And there's a board member the other day that made a comment, well, we hope things are gonna be better in Hurleyville because of the Diagnostic Treatment Center. It really annoyed the hell out of me, because like it's forget lock children, okay? So that's just something that happened at a board meeting over there, and the fact they're not really addressing the housing of second-year students, and the retention of having second-year students is one of the ways to increase enrollment. If we don't do that, and I don't wanna see us building another dorm. Two other things, these are two things that I was there at the Kite Festival. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, Marcy South came through Sullivan County, and one of the things they did was they gave money and they bought a portable stage that went through the Faculty Student Association that was supposed to be housed on the county ground, on the college grounds, to be used by any organization when they had a function. I haven't seen it for 2 years, okay?
Stage.
The stage. Dr. Galladay wanted to sell it when she was there, and Carol actually kiboshed it because she wrote a letter and said what I just said, and they realized they couldn't sell it. So I have no idea where that is. I also know, along with that, there's another part of the portable stage that exists, and I know what Fireman's Park that's sitting in. Okay? Number two is $2.2 million. And I'll give you some background. Once upon a time, long time ago, Sullivan County Community College was going to save a lot of money by hiring a company to offset their, it was an energy savings agreement. They're going to hire this company. They put out an FRP, yeah. They got this company to respond, and it was two companies. One was a major national company, and another one was a startup company, more or less in New York State. And the startup company got the job. The idea was to retrofit boilers, do a building envelope, a whole bunch of other stuff, plus put up a 1.5 megawatt wind turbine. Anyway, the company went belly up, but not after Sullivan County Community College wrote out a check for about $2.2 million to the company. And a friend of mine who used to be on a school board said they didn't follow the law. Number one, they should have been okayed by the state of New York to do business with a government entity, but after the cow got out, they opened it, they found a gate and they put one up, and they made it retro that. But the thing is, and right downstairs in a court document, it says by the owner, I had to keep that, I used that money to keep my company afloat. There was no contract with any supplier for the wind turbine. It's my understanding that was money was supposed to be put in escrow. To this day, people are walking around and we're $2.2 million out. It is costing the college $22,000 a month to pay off that lease agreement. Now, some of that is justified and a lot of it isn't. And nobody seems to want to touch this ball of wax. And a lot of people out there are really annoyed that we got beat and nobody's in jail.
The predecessor board asked that be looked into. There is a very in-depth report on that. I can make copies available for any of the current board members that want to review it. All of those situations were looked into, and recommendations were made. So if you want, they're in, I think, 4 fairly thick ring binders with all of the background material, but the report itself, Josh, I don't remember, about 100 pages, something like that. And if you want, I can have copies made and distributed to whichever legislators want a copy.
This was cash that the county paid out, or?
No, what happened was, the college.
Those manuals are in your office.
Pardon?
They're back in your office.
Oh, thank you. the board asked for that report, your predecessor board. What happened was the college entered into a so-called lease purchase arrangement, pursuant to which it was going to acquire a lot of different things. Weather stripping on doors, replacement of some window sashes, all sorts of things. That money was advanced by Bank of New York pursuant to an agreement which required the college
So,
to pay it off over 20 years.
just to, change it from public comment and get out of discussion, anybody who is interested in that, please see Sam for that booklet.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Motion to adjourn.
Jean, second, Cora.
Thank you.